Think about how you get out of your comfort zone, out of the things that you know day to day, and you push yourself out, and then you bring some of that goodness back into work.
Welcome to Real Creative Leadership, a video podcast produced by the Stoke Group and hosted by me, Adam Morgan. Thanks for joining. We have an exciting show today, and it's a topic that's been part of my career for a long time. And I know that many of you know that on this show, we talk about creative leadership, and it's a lot about leadership traits and skills and learning to speak khaki and learning to understand, different aspects of business. But today we're going to talk about a topic that is actually closer to more of our creative roots. So it's something where, oftentimes many people are afraid of getting into leadership positions because they're afraid of walking away from the day-to-day creative act. And today we're going to talk a little bit about how you can get back to those roots. So no matter what you're doing, running big teams, running your own business, whatever it may be, today we're going to talk about how do you get back to filling your creative cup? How do you get back to understanding, that, or getting back to that fire that gets you excited, gets you motivated, gets you passionate and inspired? We want to talk more about that and how you can continue to foster that creative spirit, no matter where you are in your creative journey. And today I'm excited to be joined by Maya Duke. She's the Managing Director, Global Brand, Creative, and Social Media at Delta Airlines. And she and I are going to talk about our lived experience of getting back to our creative roots and what keeps us excited and motivated. So welcome to the show, Maya.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet. Very excited about this conversation. And as always, what I love to do to start out is just have you tell us a little bit about your role and who you are and where you came from, how you got to Delta. Maybe not like your whole LinkedIn profile, but just a little bit of your history of where you've been and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Sure, happy to do that. I have spent most of my career on the brand side, focused on retail. So leading creative teams, focused on making sure products get out to customers in a way that meets their needs. Started my path at Macy's corporate, then kind of did the corporate circuit, Home Depot corporate, have did most of my time at Home Depot corporate, building and scaling their creative organization for their home fashion furnishings line, home decorators collection, and then had the tremendous opportunity after I left Home Depot to work in the entertainment, cable and entertainment sectors, industries with Comcast, NBC Universal, more retail with Tuesday Morning Stores, a fintech with Jack Henry and Associates, and then right around 2020, the end of 2020, 2021, Delta came calling, and it was an opportunity that felt like the role of a lifetime. And I didn't even think twice about it. And that's where my career has taken off. And I was tasked with growing and scaling the creative team, window seat, that was already here. And since 2021, we grew to about 70 plus. And just recently, my remit has grown again to include brand and social media. So it's just been this fast and furious climb, but could not have asked for a more fun, exciting, challenging role.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, you had me first at Home Depot. I come
Yes.
from a family of very blue collar and
Yeah.
construction. And so I've built many homes. And so I know my way around Home Depot like no other,
Home
definitely.
Depot
But
was a lovely experience, lovely time.
oh, excellent. And then, what a time to join an airline company during the pandemic, right? I mean, that was like a lot of change, a lot of crazy things are happening. How was that, as far as like such a different world when you joined it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just as you probably would imagine. There was a lot of, we weren't sure how things were going to turn out. I think I was coming in right at the end of the pandemic. And I say end because it was like we were in the clear and then the Delta variant came right when I signed on. And so there was a lot of ambiguity and not knowing how things were going to turn out. But the thing that kept me positive, kept our teams encouraged, is that our executive leadership knew exactly the things they needed to do to protect the people at Delta, to protect our customers, and to really think about what the future would look like once we pivoted. So, yes, it was a time that felt like, what are you doing joining a travel brand and airline during a pandemic when people can't fly? But I had just this sense of reassurance that the organization knew exactly how we were going to get through this phase and how we were going to pivot to come across or come over on the other side better than we had been previously, and we've done just that.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, you've done a great job. I mean, Delta is an excellent brand, and
It is.
being the owner of the brand is a big responsibility. But I think I love Delta. It's definitely my airline of choice.
We
So
love to hear it.
yeah, yeah. Well, beyond just your corporate positions, you're also a teacher and a mentor, right? That one we talked about earlier.
Yeah, yeah. So I always say, whatever the brand is, so Delta should not take offense to this, but Delta can't have everything. And you can insert whatever brand you're working at or whatever industry you're in. The organization you work for gets a lot out of you, and they get a lot out of me. They get a lot out of our team because we have such a passion for our customers, and the work is so fun. The industry is so cool. But Delta can't have everything. And so I have been really deliberate about looking at the things that matter to me most outside of work. And while I mentor mostly women, younger women within Delta, I've really tried to be deliberate and intentional about doing that work outside of Delta. So, a couple years back, I started a program called Polished Women Shine, and also kind of the spinoff to that is Polished Girls Shine. And really, what that organization does is mentors young women who are looking at a path in the creative space or just in corporate in general, and thinking about how to amplify your personal brand and stay true to your personal brand so you can get to the next level. And so it translates really nicely for young girls. And I did a mentorship summer program at a school called Atlanta Charter Heights in an underserved community. And that experience just poured so much back into my cup that I was able to kind of go back to work and feel this sense of purpose that I could kind of share with my team. I also teach an undergraduate course at Georgia State University, my alma mater, where I'm able to kind of touch and impact and influence our young aspiring marketers. I teach a course called Systematic Creativity. And that course is centered around just really breaking some of the traditional notions of what creativity is and how to innovate without being born this creative genius. So, like I said, Delta can't have everything. And those are the things that I prioritize and make sure I have space, mental space, and mental capacity to pursue outside of work.
Oh, excellent. I'm also curious about your path in leadership. I mean, because you're running a big team, a good a title that many people would be very jealous of, right? So, where did you? Because most people, when they get into the creative field, they're not necessarily thinking about leadership, and sometimes they roll their eyes and they're like, "Oh, I just want to do the work," right?
Yeah.
But it's really, really important, and that's obviously why we've got this show. But I'm curious of your path to creative leadership and when that became an important thing for you, and how you learned and grew in that space.
Yeah, I was one of the ones who rolled, I rolled my eyes about creative leadership probably right out of school.
Hmm.
Um, right out of school, I was like, you know what? I've focused on this portfolio. I have these amazing design skills. I can draw. I know that this is my jam, and I kind of defied my parents to pursue this jam. And so I was like, I don't want to be in someone's stuffy office and just pointing their finger at teams and telling them what to do. And so I was like, I'm going to hunker down. And then I got my first role at the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, but Macy's was kind of my first role where I was in this retail space where I saw merchants and buyers, and I understood there was an analytics component, and people were talking about the results of their work and the results of the creative and how those results impacted and influenced the organization to meet their goals and exceed their goals and revenue and ROI and all those things. And I was like, hold up. There's
What are all these
something
acronyms?
okay. Like I'm like, what are all these acronyms, and how can I talk about my work in the way that maybe this buyer or merchant is talking about their work? I really started to want to understand how to show my value, not just through what I could do, but what I could deliver for the organization. And I think that's where I started attaching myself and kind of infiltrating my marketing peers and sort of making friends with the marketing crew, where I could say, okay, they said this acronym or this terminology. I don't know what it means, but please tell me, and tell me how to start to see myself and my work through that lens so I can get more work, so I can sit at more tables, so I can move up the ladder. And very quickly, I mean, I'm telling you, like within when I got to Home Depot, I started to use some of what I was learning at Macy's to tell those stories and to move up the ladder. And Home Depot was a place where if you had passion for the brand, if you had passion for people, and you kind of saw a vision of where you could take a product or an expansion or expand something, you could find a spot in that organization. So I moved around quite a lot. That landed me into my role at Home Decorators Collection, where we had a very tiny team that expanded and grew, was able to grow and build a studio there, was able to grow and build the .com presence for hdc.com, and really do some things that I wouldn't have been able to do had I not started to think about leadership and how to kind of stretch the creative design aspect and the pieces that I was really focused on when I came into the industry, how to start setting my sights on stretching that career and building a path that could help other creatives come in and do the work that I loved, and be able to tell their story the way that I learned how to tell mine.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. I mean, if you stop and think about it, what we love as creatives is just to see things in new ways and just to,
Yes,
pick things up and look at it and discover. And so why wouldn't we want to learn more about marketing speak
right,
and ROI and all those other crazy
right.
things that actually help our careers grow too? So that's awesome. But now let's dig into it. Let's just talk about filling our creative cups, because it doesn't come easy, and it's something that sometimes we can easily forget, and it becomes a problem. But let's talk about you. How do you fill your creative cup? What are the things that inspire you and keep you going?
Yeah, I think we touched a little bit about just the things that I protect and make sure I have the space. And when I say space, I mean time and mental capacity to do those things. So, teaching, for one, is
Mhm.
something that I just get so much energy in life from. I call myself a youth appropriator. So, anytime.
What?
Yes, youth appropriation. It's the only appropriation that's not going to get you in trouble. And for us older older creatives, it's so good to have
Hmm.
this younger people and people who are tapped into the culture and know what's happening around you. And so I think teaching and mentorship allows me to kind of hear, see, feel, kind of immerse myself in all the things that are happening um, through the lens of a demographic that just to me is just so much smarter
Hmm.
and just knows what they want and what they don't want, and they're not going to take any ish from anyone. And so I love that. And so I find myself just really trying to make sure I have the time, space, and capacity to surround myself with things that are going to help me see things, see people and experiences and work and creative through a different lens, right? And teaching mentorship is where I get that fuel to be able to do that. And honestly, it translates, right? So it's not just that it's filling my cup, but it's also filling my cup and making me a sharper, better marketer. When you have that downtime, when you have that focus, that's not just the work you're doing. And if you so happen to have a focus that, and I think for creatives, the focus, anytime you focus on anything, it kind of feeds back into your work. But for me, surrounding myself by these younger creatives and talent, marketing talent, helps me kind of think about a demographic that we are really interested in at Delta, which is Gen Z and Gen Alpha, right? And so all of those things kind of ladder back to my work, but it helps support in the things that matter most to me as well.
Oh yeah. What about other people that other creative people? What are ways that they fill their creative vessels?
Yeah, so one of the things we talk about a lot on our team is this notion of outside in. And with creatives, sometimes you get locked in, especially if you work on the brand side in the industry, you're kind of Googling things to kind of get ideas and inspiration. And so, what I've asked the team to do is go outside in the world. If there's one thing that we can leverage, and I talk about this notion of, innovate with what you have. If there's one thing you can leverage, if there's one thing we have at Delta, that's travel. And
It's
our
true, huh?
team, right? Like, so I'm like,
Yeah.
why are you Googling what this experience is in this destination? Like, go to that experience and really experience the destination while taking time off, while unplugging, while not thinking about work and the next project, but really go on your trips, kind of take things in, unwind, and then come back fresher, more rejuvenated, and then with a better and different perspective. So those lenses that I talk about, how do you see the world through other people's points of view? You have to sometimes go to those places and experience it. So this outside in travel is huge here at Delta, making sure people are able to go and see the world and then take some time off. And then also, making sure that continuing education is or learning and development is something that we really stress on my team and within the Delta marketing culture. And it's not just learning about something that's going to directly impact Delta, it's learning something that's going to fill your personal cup. And I think that's so important to make sure that you're pushing people, yes, to learn more about, the latest in Adobe products. Of course, we want to
Mhm.
know and be better practitioners. Yes, we want to understand, what production techniques are out there, but maybe you want to learn more about knitting. And I want you to be able to do that because that is, within the yarn and the fabrics and the textures and all those things and the craftsmanship, there could be an unlock that you can bring back to us. And maybe there's no unlock. Maybe it's going to calm my nerves. And so when I come to work, I'll have this sense of calm, and that's enough for us. So we really push that continuing education, learning, and development in addition to travel and that notion of outside in.
Oh, there are so many comments that I want to just jump in on all of those things you said. So I'll try and break it apart into little bits. But first of all, I love the idea of travel. There was a good study that it was like something about as long if you've left the country and visited another country, like your level of empathy or your chance of truly understanding other people and cultures and having respect for them like goes like super high. Like it's
Yes.
it's it's super important to do something like that. But as far as like, even just filling your cup, like there's one thing of like, all right, I'm crazy busy. I need to do something that's just different so that I, get a break and just kind of recharge. But for me, like the core thing of creativity, it's not just filling your cup, but it's also filling the well. Like when you're
Mm,
coming up with ideas or concepts throughout my whole career, it's like the more stuff that you can fill into your head, the more new connections you can make, right? And so going out and experiencing, like I like your words, outside in, going and
mm-hmm.
experiencing the outside also makes you a better creative. It's not
Yeah.
just helping chill you out, it makes you better creative. So I know this one guy who he actually even would write those things off. Like if he'd go to a movie or if
Yeah.
he'd go to a cultural event, he'd save those receipts and write off because he's like, this is my business of being a creative. And understanding pop culture and making campaigns
Yeah.
and ideas around it, then it's absolutely a part of it. And so
Yes.
he would write all those things off on his taxes. And so I totally love that. I'm like, yes, yes, we
Yeah.
should be doing that. We should be going outside because we are students of humanity and culture and emotions and moments. And so getting out there, I think it's so critical for our jobs and for our mental health. So it's like a two in one.
Absolutely. For your friend who would write those things off, I think he's brilliant because I remember just a few months ago when Beyonce's Renaissance tour was
Mm.
just heating it up. And we got our tickets very early. My girlfriends and I got our tickets super early. Every time she comes to Atlanta, I've seen her every single time. And it was during a moment that was really, the concert happened during a moment that there was a lot of shifts and turns and changes within Delta. And just our work was heating up, right? It was one of those busy moments, seasons where you're just like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. And I was like, maybe I can just sell my ticket. And I was heading out the night of the concert. I walked out and I think I had like maybe 45 minutes to get home, get showered, get dressed, and go to the concert. And I was like, I think, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. And I saw a coworker and I was like, do you know anybody who would want Beyonce tickets? And everyone knows like I'm like Beyonce obsessed.
Mm.
And she said to me, like, on the way out, she was like, one, you need to go just because you work so hard and you deserve it. And two, this is research. Like
Mm.
there's so many experiential components you're going to see at that concert. You're going to understand marketing and how to get someone to kind of follow your brand. Just how people were dressed. You saw everyone was wearing the silver and like they were all just kind of, you know, just in the moment. They were immersed in showing up, not just to see the concert, but actually to be a part of the concert. And she was like, why wouldn't you go for that reason alone, just to say you could bring some things back, new ideas? And I was like, you know what? I talk about this all the time, this notion of outside in. And here I am about to just
Mm.
sell my ticket and go to sleep probably, or get back
Yeah.
on my laptop if I'm really being honest. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, you know what? I can fill my cup, not think about work, and then also get these kind of peripheral or by osmosis ideas of how I could bring some things back. So it was just one of those moments where I was like, okay, this makes sense. I'm going. And I went and had a blast.
Well, I'm glad you did. And that's another part of our message is like burnout is a choice. If we as creatives aren't filling that cup, then we're going to get burned out and then
Yep.
you're worthless. It's
Yeah.
like you,
That's such a good point. No one was saying I couldn't go. I was on my way home. No one was like, Maya, I really need you to get back online and finish up the thing. No one was saying that. It was me making a choice that I didn't have time to fill my cup, that Delta could have everything. And someone just quickly reminded me, like, not only can they not have everything, but you're going to have this filled well by experiencing this moment. So you need to go.
no,
It's a
absolutely.
choice.
Well, that's awesome. Well, another thing that I want to go back to is your conversation about teaching the students and bringing up that new kind of fresh, vibrant life from a younger generation. And why I think that's so important, like, at least to me, like on our show, we've talked a lot about quiet creatives versus, extroverts and how you get your energy and whatever else it is. But I just want to point out that this is an important thing as far as like also the conversation around diversity, because
Yes.
we all fill our wells and fill our cups in such different ways, regardless of gender or race or any of those things. Like it's like someone may be into true crime, someone else may be into
Yeah.
a different part of pop culture. I'm into nerdy board games or outdoor recreation and, adrenaline rush sports. Like we're all into different things. And so the more we're out there experiencing those and then bringing it all back to our teams, I think that's such a big level of fostering not just creativity, but diversity, which is really
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about, well, one, Delta is not just a talker. Um, we live those values every day. The initiatives and programs that we go after are important, but then it's just a way of life at Delta. we walk the walk, right? So when we think about diversity, even within my team, we think about pipelines, we think about how we can get, give access to people who are considering this career but have never seen themselves leading or even being a part or having or being part of the conversation within the creative space or creative leadership space mostly. So that said, we take it a step further and we start to think about cognitive diversity. And I teach within our class, we talk about why brainstorming is so overrated
Hmm.
in my class, and we talk about this at work too, where you get in a room and there are so many people who absorb information and come out with ideas differently,
Hmm.
and we create space for that. So it's not that, you're in a brainstorm session and there's always someone who's the loudest or who can think on their feet faster, but that empathy and that understanding comes in when we start to say, oh, you know what, well, we have this person who doesn't speak up in those conversations. It's not that she's social loafing, it's that she's thinking, that
Hmm.
she's processing, that she's putting all the pieces together so she can go home, fill her cup, maybe knit, and think about the conversation that we started to have in that brainstorm session. She's going to come back with a brilliant idea, and we're going to say, oh my gosh, where did that come from? Well, it came from her cognitive process that she has to go through that might be different than my cognitive process, that might be different than yours. And so, really, it's about trying to help people feel good about what they can deliver regardless of how they deliver it. And I think that's really important when we start to talk about diversity and inclusion and equity. It's giving all people the space to tell creative stories through their lens, through their experience, and through the way that they process those things that they see, feel, experience. And I think that is a piece that gets a little lost in sometimes when we start those conversations about equity and inclusion, it gets lost in some of those conversations.
So as you bring up all of these different aspects of your team, that's the next, big question somebody be asking. Like, all right, so how do you encourage others on your team? Like, we're bad enough that we're, as leaders sometimes skipping the Beyonce concerts, and we shouldn't. It's like trying to take care of ourselves. But how do we take care of the others and encourage them to, fill the well?
Yeah, we operationalize it. So I know a lot of
Nice.
organizations, yeah, we put metrics behind it. We have a roadmap that we it's almost like our creative Bible where we put all of the initiatives and projects that obviously the organization wants us focused on. And then we put our learning and development goals on that roadmap. We put our growth and inspiration goals on that roadmap. We put a lot of our task forces on that roadmap, and we have a inspiration. We have emerging technology. We have a lot of focus areas awards, and recognition is also a task force. But those task forces aren't side hustles. It's not like, hey, when you have time, join the awards committee. No, we have metrics that align to some of the overarching goals within our organization that we can go back at review time and say, hey, did you really prioritize learning and development for your team? And I'm looking at the leaders when I ask that question. Hey, did you really prioritize creating a career development plan for your team, which would include well-being, your wellness week? Did you take it? Did you encourage
Mm.
your team to take it? Are you modeling the behaviors that you're asking your team to do? And then we're holding you accountable for that, because that's a huge component of our results. The fact that our creative team also supports employee communications in terms of the creative that we develop for employee comms. We have internal facing creative and external facing creative. And I think it helps us to be more aware of how we take care of our people, because as we're developing campaigns about wellness and well-being for the organization, we're taking some of those learnings and turning to our team and saying, hey, you developed we did this really cool campaign called Hello From a Better You. And I was like, okay, this is great creative, but are you doing some of the things that we highlighted in the
Yeah.
strategy to make sure you're taking care of yourself? So it's not just talking about it, but it's actually putting it, operationalizing it, putting it on your end of year performance reviews, and making sure you're talking about it all the time and you're modeling that behavior.
Oh, that's so great. I know we talked about operationalizing it, but you gave more nuggets this time that I hadn't heard. And so it's like, I
Yeah,
wanted to grab my notebook and write down a couple of them. I'm going to get them later from the recording here, but that is so fantastic to, I like the committees. Like if we really truly believe in something, let's make that not just a priority, but follow up on it with different
yeah,
committees and leadership on it. I love that. Well, it's funny you bring up knitting because something that we've done, I'm just going to share a couple, notes from my experience in leading teams and how to get them to stay inspired. One of them is I do a creative workshop, and I've done this before I was at Adobe, an agency before that, where it's like every week or every other week, we just have a Friday morning meeting. And the only purpose of it is inspiration. And we take turns. We'll assign someone to talk about whatever, a book that they've read, or we bring in a guest speaker. And literally, a woman on our team not too long ago, she loves quilting. And like you talk about knitting, but she did a whole section on quilting and patterns and all these different things that that come from that whole world. And she was just at a conference like a week ago. So I love weaving some of those personal side hustles or at least passions into it as well. And then we have a Slack channel that's only dedicated to brand and creative in real life,
I love
which I
that.
think is awesome because people will always share their little things that they're doing, whether they're traveling or learning or something, trick or treating with the kids. But that kind of a thing is just something that's not part of work, but it totally helps
Yeah.
humanize things and learn more about the team. And I need to post more often. I do a very poor job of doing that, but I love the channel and I love that the team embraces it.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about how people come alive when they talk about something that matters to them, whether it's a project they worked on at work or something they work on at home, like that's the energy. Like if you could bottle up that energy and that momentum, and just like as people come to work, like here's your excitement pill. Like, that sounds very bad, but like if you think about, but it would be natural. You see, it wouldn't be drugs or it wouldn't be
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
pharmaceuticals. It would be just the adrenaline and the lift and the goodness you feel when you have something that you're proud of, and you can dedicate the time and the space and energy towards that. How many more amazing ideas or concepts could we develop if people felt that good when they came to work?
All right. I know we're getting near the end here. I just have a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
First, what is it that you love most about being a creative leader? What charges you about the leadership aspect for you personally?
There's so many things, but I always come back to the people. I have never worked at an organization where I didn't fall in love with my team, with the ideas that they constantly come up with. They surprise me every single time. The team just came back from South by Southwest, and we had just this tremendous showing. When we got the brief, we were so excited to develop work on behalf of the brand, but to put this new spin on this brand that's been around for 99 years, and how to kind of push them forward into this new era of connection, is what we called it. And I was just blown away by the creativity, the care, the excitement that they had doing that project, and then seeing them there enjoying the work in real time. So again, filling their cups by actually being a part of the experience that they developed. And so I've never worked for an organization yet that I didn't just love my team and didn't feel this immense sense of admiration for the work they do, and how they can come back every single time with a bigger, better idea is amazing to me. So I would say that's the piece. And then, leading, we started the conversation off by talking about this eye roll of like, I'm not gonna be able to get in the work. But that's where, again, carving time to do things on the side. I am constantly creating wedding invitations for my family, or some kind of visual. I'm going to do my daughter's graduation invites, and just making sure that I still have the opportunity to get in the work and create for myself has helped me to be really good about the leadership piece. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love this path, and I love being able to kind of influence people's careers.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I think that by modeling that good behavior of like, you got to have this balance, you've got to have the inspired, you got to keep doing
Yeah,
things that are exciting and fun. I think it helps the team realize that it's not just all business. It's not just all, um, you know, put on a suit and be serious, right? Like you can be
no, it
playful and
can't be.
fun and human and
Yeah.
connected. I also love that you talked about how you love your team. Like I
Ugh.
read in one book, I'm not going to mention it. And then I had an earlier leader who was like, had this philosophy that they needed to have a barrier between them and the team,
Mm,
because if there was like hard times or whatever, if they had to fire one, like you couldn't be too close. And I
mm.
totally disagree with that. I
Yeah.
think leadership where you love them, I think this world is so fast and we have such a short time on this rock that I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to be friends. I want to be close,
Yes.
maybe not family, but close
Not
and good
family.
friends, and really care and love them and have them feel that and know that. And I think that's special and important.
Yeah. How can you be with someone most of your time every day for years
Yes.
and
Years.
not, yeah, not care about someone's well-being? And if you have to make tough decisions, you can still care for someone and do it in a way that um, honors their dignity and helps them land in a good place. And I just don't know how, as humans, you go through life not being able to care about somebody and be proud of it. I even on social media sometimes, like I'm on LinkedIn and I'm like, someone posts something, I'm like, love, love, love. And I was like, well, maybe I love everything. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, I feel like I rather that than hate everything. So I'm gonna continue to do what I feel in my heart, and it'll take me, I don't know, wherever it takes me, fine. But I feel really strongly and passionately about caring deeply for the people that you're with most
Yes.
of your life. So I
Yes.
don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I totally agree. All right. Any last minute advice? How can we be better at staying inspired or prioritizing, creative fulfillment?
Just remember, insert your job's name, can't have everything. So go find.
I
So
like
for
that.
me, Delta can't have everything. So go find what your thing is so that they're not getting all of it from you outside in. So think about how you get out of your comfort zone, out of the things that you know day to day, and you push yourself out. And then you bring some of that goodness back into work. And then just realizing that, back to your point about filling your cup, that taking time for yourself also fills your well. I'm going to write that down. You talk about going back and listening to the recording. I love that phrase, and I'm going to say it more because fill your cup just feels a little bit more, and I think that's good. It's self serving, but then also realizing that some of that pours back into your work is a really great thing to kind of attach yourself to. So fill your cup. And then also while you're doing that, you're filling your well. So those are my three things.
Oh, that was such a great summary. Thank you. What a
Well,
delightful conversation.
it
How to stay
was.
inspired, how to be happy. We've talked about it all here, of filling your cups and your wells and helping your team and operationalizing. I think that was another big important part for me that I took away from this conversation, is like, make it real. Don't just think about it,
Make it
but
real.
like make it a part of your plan. So love that.
Make it real.
Well, thank you, Maya. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today. We really, really appreciate your insight.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We'll catch you next time on the next episode. Until then, good luck getting out in the world and getting inspired. We hope you have a good time. We'll see you. As always, you can find me at adamwmorgan.com. And finally, this show is produced by the Stoke Group, a full-service digital agency that specializes in content marketing, video, and interactive experiences. So if you're looking for a partner for strategy or content or anything else, visit thestokegroup.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.